You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. A few days ago, you heard from Mike and Todd from Colorado about their night encounter. Now, what we neglected to get recorded was the specifics about Todd's first encounters. So what we have here is a special episode where Todd was nice enough to send in more information about his Bigfoot encounters that initially happened. Enjoy this follow-up to episode number 836 that came out just a few days back. So enjoy. Thank you to Todd for sending this in.
Hey, Jeremiah, this is Todd from Colorado. Just thought I'd try this one more time. Hopefully it works more than 13 seconds. So I spoke about my experience in Leadville, but didn't get into that. So figured we do that now. So I had worked at the hospital up there. I was in 2012 through 2014, and I would drive up Monday through Thursdays, and I stayed by myself up there at an apartment, and I had lots of time to kill in the evenings, so sometimes I go take a drive or go for a hike, and this time I decided I was going to go fishing since the weather was getting nicer. I want to say it was May, because I remember thinking about bears coming out of hibernation, as I'll explain later. The pictures on my phone say July, but I know I'm at least like 3 phones past that time. So went to Turquoise Lake, which is west of town, and headed across the dam on the west side of the lake. Got to a part where I could see water to my right, a little bit downhill, and there was a little pull-off, so parked the car, decided to check it out from there. Headed down the hill, and I came across I don't know what it's exactly called, but it's an old mining test pit or a tailings pile. And I remember going around the pile to the right and heading down the hill towards the lake, and realized that there was a dirt road with a parking area that was close to the water. So instead of going all the way down and hiking back up, I just turned around a little bit past that pile and started heading back to the car. Went around it the other way, so kind of did full circle to the right. And I noticed a footprint. It was kind of in the pine needles, and it's heading uphill the same way I was going. A little bit of a side hill too, so it wasn't flat in any way. And I stopped and decided that I needed to take some pictures, because I don't know why anybody would be out there in bare feet. And I say some pictures. I wear a size 11.5, and is a good bit bigger than my foot. Kind of looks a little funky shape to me, but you can see toes, and I could see 5 toes, and they're almost like it was digging into the dirt going up the hill, in my opinion. Eventually, got back to the car and drove down to the road, parked down there by the lake, and decided to try fishing out the little bit of time in the evening that I had. And I remember a storm kind of rolling in, so it was thunder and lightning, and decided to give it up at that point. But I do remember standing on the rocks on the shore and being uncomfortable and feeling kind of vulnerable. And I attributed it to being hungry bears coming out of hibernation. I just remember that. And then kind of, after seeing the footprint and then thinking in my head, it could be Bigfoot too, but trying to play it off. And it was at the time when Finding Bigfoot was on. So, it was on my mind. I watched Finding Bigfoot fairly often, and that was one of the things that I could watch on the TV up there. Short time later, one of the guys from maintenance came into my office and started chatting, and he noticed my Bigfoot hunting license sticker that I had by my desk. So he starts telling me about how they're here and how his family's seen them. And then he points out my window and says how they live in the old mines over there and how the government forced the mines to be closed back in the day. And he was basically pointing the direction of Turquoise Lake. So it got me really thinking. And I showed him the picture of the prints, and he thought I totally saw one. And the only other thing that was up there was one of the times I drove to the Mount Massive trailhead and decided to hike up by myself. I went maybe a quarter mile, and I started really thinking it was a bad idea to be out there by myself, and I just felt bad about it. So I turned back and actually never went back to that area again. Have a couple other experiences, or what it could be experiences, that I've had in the past when I haven't been with my friend Mike. So I thought I'd share them. If they're worthy of including, go ahead. If not, then no hard feelings, but figured might as well. So I went with my family. It was September 2020. Stayed in a cabin near Wellington Lake, south of Bailey. The cabin itself is about a quarter mile back in Old Forest Road. And there's only one other place along the road there, and this cabin's at the very end, and then there's just a closed gate that's locked. So there's only two places. There's no one at that other place, and didn't look like it was used very often. The Colorado Trail runs nearby where you can actually see hikers on, in the distance. You can kind of see half bodies moving from where we were at the cabin and at the fire pit and everything. So there were some tree structures where there weren't any roots or nearby stumps. There were, X pattern and like cross-shaped things that I remember. I had just got a recorder, so I put that out. And we had an elk bugling all night. And it was early September, so it wasn't out of the question to hear it, but it did go all night. And, it was kind of cool to hear. One of the things I caught in the morning that I thought was weird, it sounded like voices that weren't English. They were female voices, and kind of attributed that it could be hikers. But they sounded near the cabin more than what the trail was. We didn't hear the hikers talking when we were out there. So I thought that was a little strange. One of our things was the water pump went off on day 2, so we didn't have any water. So I was busy messing with that, trying to get the pump to work and get some water, get showers, and actually they were in the dishwasher and use the toilet. My oldest son, it was getting dark, and he went out with my wife, and he said he heard a yell and said it sounded like something like finding Bigfoot, and he was pretty freaked out. And he would have been 12 then, and he was really anxious and didn't want to be outside the rest of the night. We actually had decided to move the fire from the fire pit they had to, we had a gas fire ring, and we were much closer to the cabin. And one of the things that I do remember is it was advertised, and the host had a comment about something like they haven't seen Bigfoot yet. And then one of the other things we got from them was they warned us about a bear that would break into their metal shed. So, of course, I went to go check out the metal shed, and it looked more crushed than anything. There weren't any claw marks, but it seemed like it was smashed from the top, like you would picture a grizzly bear when they pounce on things and try to break it open. It kind of looked like something came down on it more than something tried to pull it open. But thought that was weird. And it was right next to the cabin too, where actually our boys were staying. So we had to actually and they didn't have blinds on the windows. We had to put yoga mats up on the blinds with duct tape so they were comfortable sleeping. So the Bigfoot weren't looking in. A couple more times went out and thought maybe something was going on. So once took the family up to Jefferson Lake. It was August of 2021. And we decided to go fishing up there. I heard it was beautiful. Actually, I heard some some Bigfoot stories from others. We got up there, it started storming, so it was raining and actually started hailing on us. So we kind of pulled under a pine tree and waited it out. The lake up there is it's like 10,000 feet. So once it decided to quit, we decided to get out and stretch our legs and do a little fishing. And we went by the boat launch area. There were only 2 or 3 cars still there when we got there. And we could see other groups fishing in the immediate area. We didn't really have much luck. We did catch some fish, I do remember. And, it was misty and there were low clouds, kind of what you'd picture, in Washington or Oregon, that just the low hanging clouds and just a dreary day. And I just remember we were all just sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear what sounds like chimps up in the hillside. And I remember turning to my wife and saying, "Did you hear that?" She did not hear anything. And I'm like, "There are freaking chimps up there." It was really weird. They seemed kind of far away, but they were loud. And we decided to give it up. We'd caught some fish. My son actually cleaned them and put them in the cooler for us to take home. And there was only one truck there by the time we left, and those people were still fishing. So surely they didn't seem like hikers, but it was just a weird, what the heck was that kind of moment. And I'd heard stories of people seeing Bigfoot in that area, which is partially why we went up there. But it's just beautiful in itself. Another time, and it was December 2021, went up to Rocky Mountain National Park. We live like an hour from the park, so it's kind of a regular thing for us. And it was a nice day in December. We decided to go up there, just to kind of actually go visit where my wife's father's ashes were spread. We get up to where there's a pull off. The gate was closed for the winter, so we just parked on the main road and decided we could walk back. There's hardly any snow, and there wasn't any snow on the dirt road back there, so we figured it wasn't a big deal. It was maybe a mile back, and that's when I noticed there were tracks on the side of the road. It was in the soft dirt. It was like kind of being, I think it was being like revegetated would be what you would call it. What I noticed was, again, the tracks were bigger than my foot. They were about 8 feet apart, and it looked almost like they stepped just off the road, planted, and like jumped over the drainage area right off the road. And I just thought it was a weird place for a person to be running across the road without a trail, in bare feet, in December. And if they were going to jump across that, I would have thought they would have planted on the asphalt, not the soft dirt. There wasn't anything on the other side that I could see, but the ground got harder, and there's like granite chips, and it's not a good spot for leaving tracks after that. But it was just really soft dirt right there. And another time, I decided to go camping by myself with my dog. Went up the Poudre Canyon, back a road that's pretty familiar for me because we go up there we used to go up there at least every year with family. It's back Pingree Park Road. And you go back to the end, and it's Colorado State Forestry School at the end. And it is basically, you're looking at the north side of Rocky Mountain National Park, so you could hike into the park from there if you really wanted. But anyway, it was, remember, Memorial Day, May 2022. Got up there, got all set up, get a campfire going, and it decides to get windy as heck. And I was in Old Burn area. I think it was from the Cameron Peak fire of 2020. So that was in some nice ponderosa pines, but off of the past there, not too far, it was a burn area. If it wasn't the Cameron Peak fire, it was a previous fire. But I didn't stay up very late, and my dog kept wanting to go in the car. That he was scared, and I figured it was because people were shooting off in the distance, so it kind of sounded like fireworks, like it does this time of year in the neighborhood. But he wanted to go into the front and the driver's seat side and like lay down by the gas and the brake pedal, and basically like as far as under as he could get. But since it was windy, it was pretty chilly, so just, called it an early night, got in the back, went to sleep. Some point, I wake up in the middle of the night, and I am hearing like two owls hooting. Sounds like directly over the vehicle, like maybe like 10 feet up. So, 10 feet the most above my head. It just sounded like these huge owls. And it's kind of like, whatever, stupid owls. And then, laid there for a little bit and thought, well, I'm up. Probably should pee. So I got out with the dog, stayed right near the vehicle. I went to the back corner and made sure he stayed close. But for some reason, I looked to the left, and this is my woo introduction of weird stuff that happens, but I look to the left in the burn area, and I see this green light, just like a point of light, just out, looked like it was kind of hovering out there. And when I looked at it, it just flashed, kind of pulsed, and then just disappeared. And I just remember that pulse was like the sound of an old TV turning off. And I ended up not spending the whole weekend there, because the next day it decided to just kind of start raining and be windy again. And it actually started snowing by the time I had got finished loading up and driving out. So kind of glad I didn't stay, because it would have just been a cold, miserable time. But the thing was we went back with the family to the same spot. And I'm not sure right now, but it was July or August that year. And one of the things that I paid attention to were those trees that I was parked under. And there weren't any branches that were 10 feet up. It was more maybe 20 feet up that would support any kind of large bird. And it kind of freaked me out after seeing that I'm like, maybe those weren't owls, and maybe they were something else standing over the vehicle looking in my window. Okay, last couple for me. So I like to go in the fall, try to get one last hike in when the weather's not too bad, where it hasn't snowed or not miserable. So October 2022, I went out past Bailey and Kenosha Pass. It's Lost Creek Road. There was an area that was recommended to me that I was trying to find. However, I got to the end of the road, and it's Lost Creek Campground, and there's a little parking area outside the campground. So I parked there so I didn't have to pay. And I couldn't find the trail that I was looking for, so I just decided any of these would work. So I went through the campground, noticed there was only a couple campers, literally two groups of campers. It was really cold that night, that it was in the low 30s at best. I got there maybe 8 in the morning, and it was chilly. I had a hoodie, and I actually had pants on, and I hardly ever have pants on the hike. I just hike in shorts. But there was a group of campers. They had a dog that kind of came out when I walked by, and he was friendly and was talking to them, saying like, you guys are brave camping when it's that cold in the tent. And they thought they were stupid for doing it. But anyway, said goodbye, headed on my way, walked maybe like 50 yards past their campsite, where the trail comes off the road to the campground. Just decided to head up that. And as soon as I hit that trail, there was this wet dog smell. It was this wet, dirty dog out of nowhere. And it wasn't the camper's dog, because he didn't smell when I was petting him. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have pet him if he smelled that bad. And the other thing was, he wasn't anywhere near there. So thought that was a weird way to start my hike. And I was by myself. So was paying attention to the surroundings. And basically, I had hiked up through a meadow, got to where the next road comes across, and cut back that. It ended up being a 10-mile hike, but I never did find the trail that I was looking for. Found it later on another trip, but nothing happened there. And then the following year, it was October 2023, went to a trail with my wife this time, and it's near where the cabin that we stayed at in 2020 was. That the trail goes the other direction, so you don't go past the cabin there, but it's nearby, and it goes into the Lost Creek Wilderness. And I know it's an area that seems to have pretty good activity, because that's one of the places Jim Myers takes people for night hikes. But we were there during the day. I'm not sure how far back it is where I started seeing what looked like tree structures. And I just remember we're heading up the hill, and there was rocks to the right, and to the left there's just tree structures. And I'm like, 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 6, there's 12. And big ones, little ones, tree bends, X's, there's logs balanced that I don't think a person could lift or people could lift. They surely didn't just fall that way. There's just so many different things. It felt like you were walking through like a archway, and some of them didn't feel welcoming, but I felt the need to go check it out. Get a little bit further, we were in the Lost Creek Wilderness. There's a sign that lets you know you're in the wilderness, and there was a creek crossing. We crossed the creek. Then we looked up to see what the trail went and thought, it gets kind of steep, and we've been pretty good if we were like 5 miles back at that point. So we crossed back the creek and start heading back, and we see there's a teepee structure like leaning against a tree on the other side of the creek, a little ways back, and did not notice that on the way in, and thought that was strange that it's kind of out in the open, but it wasn't. Just a couple more quick things for you, Jeremy, for the listeners out there. If you're thinking about sharing a story, or you're afraid to share your story, let Jeremiah know. Just email him, whatever. He's not any different off air than he is on air. He doesn't ask you anything weird or make you feel stupid or anything like that. But share your story, please, because there's so many puzzle pieces that we need to figure out, and it might not be my piece of the puzzle that you share, that it might be somebody else's that helps them get the picture. We're all looking to figure this out or learn more, or just interested and think it's cool. But either way, anything you can share adds to everybody's life when it involving Bigfoot or any other creature or experience that's weird. Who cares? It's just more information for someone else that maybe helps figure it out what this whole thing is. And the other thing is, if anybody wants to contact us, let Jeremiah know. And there's no judgment of this is too weird or too out there or anything. I'm willing to listen to. I'm, cool with going out with people, go explore different areas. The worst case is we go for a hike and say, that was stupid and too hard, and why did we do that? But otherwise, we get to have a great time in the mountains, outside, and be with nature. So if you want to share or get in contact with us, let Jeremiah know, and I'm sure he'll forward it to us. If you're in Colorado, Wyoming, I'm from Pennsylvania too, so I'm always interested in stuff from back home too. But thank you for everything, and appreciate you guys listening, and thank you for listening, Jeremiah, and getting our story out there. It feels good to just have it out there, and it is what it is at this point. Thanks, everybody.
Special thanks to Todd for sending in the rest of his story. Really appreciated hearing the extra information. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new episodes, and share this one with a friend who's in the Bigfoot, Colorado. Just a good mystery in the woods. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you follow the show. And if you could leave us a 5-star positive review, that really helps others discover us. Now, if you've had a Bigfoot encounter, especially if it happened around places like Leadville, Bailey, Jefferson Lake, or Rocky Mountain National Park, I'd love to hear from you. So please send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Thanks again for being part of the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, stay curious, and always look twice at the trail behind you, and see you in the woods.